Welcome in, welcome back again, one more time with some more solo content. Now, I know, uh, some of y'all just don't like solo content or you don't come to my page for solo content, which is like perfectly understandable. It's also some of the like least performing things on this channel of all the things that we do, but I really enjoy solo content for really two reasons. One, because I really actually do love being able to explain my thought process, especially as someone who loves to like teach and like being in spaces where we're learning together. Being able to have content like this already out there to kind of like have folks understand what my thought process is when I'm entering encounters, I think not only helps the whole group in terms of like figuring out where they can fit in and what roles they can play, but I think also it's just very practical in terms of other people being able to like see someone's solo content, get through content. At this point, I think I've soloed every dungeon except one. Like I've done other encounters solo, all the good type of stuff. But anyways, the point being that like it can be a learning experience for everyone, as well as you all definitely aren't shy about giving me feedback in the comment section. The other reason is that I really do believe anyone can solo content. I know it's very intimidating, or it can seem very intimidating, but ultimately I do believe anyone who really puts their mind to it can do solo content. So today we're going to quickly walk through, or as quickly as, y'all know me, I rant, but as quickly as I know how, we're going to walk through a salvage activity where I ended up having to do it solo. In the particular past week or so, there is a lot of matchmaking issues. And so I loaded up to do a regular salvage, not solo, not legend, just a regular normal salvage to join and do it with the group. And I ended up only loading it by myself because of the matchmaking issues. And so I actually wanted to walk through how I approached the boss room for this fight. The boss room, as you all know, if you don't already know, I put out a video on it already, but the boss room mechanic is pretty simple. You find the symbol, you go to the symbol, you take off the shield, then you kill the enemy. First, you have to do it to the rune keepers, and then you have to do it to the boss. And so bringing into this fight already, I was playing around with the Sunbracers build, and we can actually go into that at a different time if folks want to know. But the main purpose of the Sunbracers build is get a melee kill off, preferably on a low tier enemy, so you can do it fast. And then you have unlimited grenades, although it's not truly unlimited, but you do get unlimited grenades per se with the Sunbracers exotic armor, to be able to throw as many grenades as you can within a certain amount of time. It ends up being about 4 or 5 grenades, but again, the exotic says unlimited. The reason I was really interested in bringing this build into this activity, especially since I originally had a different kit on when I started, but then when I figured, I was like, oh, I'm actually just in here solo, I switched to this build, is because it has great ad clearing ability. Not only that, I'm rocking a build where both my grenades, which again, I'm going to have a lot of grenades, as well as my solar weapons are going to be able to net me a lot of orbs, as well as armor charges, as I'm rocking 2 solo surges. So solo surge, try and say that 5 times, but solo surges so that I can get additional solar weapon damage. So the main part of this fight is pretty straightforward, and I'm not really gonna, go too deep into it because it's pretty straightforward. But again, I'm going around getting myself in a really good position that's gonna allow me to stay alive. Once I have my melee energy, I go kill a trash hat, then I take advantage of Sunbracers, do that, clear out odds, and then I do damage to either the rune keepers or the boss to get their shield down to go from there. One of the things that you'll see me start off with is Gallahorn. I took this in not just because it's a solar weapon, but also because in my mind, again, there's a little bit of build crafting and theory crafting. I really haven't tried this setup before. I typically take in a solar linear, thinking about my cataclysmic, when I'm trying to do this type of build. But I was like, hey, why don't we give Gallahorn a chance and see how much I can do damage, given the fact that I'm in here solo. I wanted to finish this. I really didn't want to like back out and try and get another fire team and see if matchmaking worked. I just wanted to get the clear because I had other things to do that day. Specifically, I think this is one of those days where I was gaming a little bit before work. And so this is like, I have to, finish getting dressed. I have to like, actually go commute, do the whole thing. So this is like, I really can't afford to like extra time. I just wanted to hop on really quickly, get through the weekly, mission and whatnot, and then get off. So again, the theory being that like, let's try out Gallahorn. Gallahorn does a good bit of damage, Wolfpack rounds. I think it should be good. So after this first damage phase, you see right there, that is like what, 1/8, 1/10, and I'm not trying to be here here doing like 7, 8 rounds of damage. So I'm a little bit discouraged. I'm, obviously trying to get ready to set up for the next damage phase. But as I'm going around the room, really trying to stay alive, using my rift, using my solar weapon to be able to create orbs, get my power regeneration back, all the good things, right? I'm also thinking in my mind is like, I gotta do more damage to this. And again, mind you, I'm not coming into this like a solo dungeon encounter, like where you kind of really have prepped beforehand to be able to do damage and be ready for each encounter. I came in here thinking I was gonna do this with the group. So I actually had my Rick's Rift build, and it was gonna be a fun arc build and just have fun with it so I can get through it quickly. But knowing that I was by myself, I switched to this. I really didn't have all the mods ready. I just knew that, hey, I'd have the bare bones of a Sunbracer's build. Let's try that plus Gallahorn. So not having everything prepped is also adding into that, how we're in this situation right now, just to be transparent. But the whole thing still remains is that I'm trying to figure out the best way to stay alive, get the boss's shield down and go from there. And so you'll see that I've tried a couple different times, either using weapon damage or on this round, using actual grenade damage to get the boss's shield down. And so the grenade damage did work and that was great, but also this boss moves a lot. So that has me thinking again is like, how can I make sure that I'm doing damage? And so I'm trying to do as much damage as I can, but you also can see right now, I do the thing that I tell people to not do all the time, which is panic. So I was missing very easy shots. I was using my grenade instead of my actual weapons, just things that really weren't like super common sense. Now, granted, I did a lot more damage. Well, maybe not a lot more, but I did significant more damage than I did the first round. But I'm still worried about how to get through this because again, I'm thinking about like IRL, like I need to actually go be an adult and do adult things. So you see right there, I made a quick change to Cataclysmic because that was the thing in my mind. It's like I still have double Solar Surge on. Again, Solar Surge, I say that 5 times, but I still have double Solar Surge on. And so I know that like Cataclysmic, without having to think too much, I know it has boss spec on. I should be able to use my grenades for the ads, and that's going to take care of that. And then I can just focus on my linear, which is also going to get a boost to be able to do that for boss damage. In the midst of trying to do that, in the midst of trying to think through all those things at the same time, and a little bit of a panic and a little bit like just rushing, trying to get through the encounter, you see I get set up for the next boss damage phase, and I completely abandoned the plan I had already thought in my mind. Rather than going through the whole thing of like actually trying to like focus on clearing out ads before doing damage. And obviously once you start the plate, the counter starts for the boss damage phase, right? So not only did I waste the boss damage phase because I stepped on the plate earlier, but I originally started throwing grenades at the boss, not at ads, right? So again, I think this is just one of those things where it's very important to like, if you're going into solo encounters, whether you're trying to do it solo or solo flawless, again, I think it's always good to like try for solo before solo flaws, because you need to really learn, like we're doing right here, trial and error, and figuring out what actually is going to work for your play style, but also to survive and be able to clear the encounter. And so being in a space where it's like, okay, I'm tripping, I need to get back on track. And so I kind of take a step back. I play a little bit more passive, as you'll see. And again, we're not going to show all the footage because I do take my time a little bit these next couple rounds, but it really is thinking about the fact that like I've just basically wasted a boss damage phase. I don't think I really did any damage this phase. Yeah, no, the shield's still up. I didn't even finish taking down the shield, and we're basically over with damage phase. Now, I was able to kind of recover, if you want to call it that. And, I focused up. I knew it wasn't the best strategy, but I was like, let me go ahead and pop my well, see what damage I can do. I'm getting hit by enemies everywhere. Survivability is key. I still haven't taken the shield down, but I was just like, let me just try and do what I can do, right? So everything's just piling on top of me, but I know I have my trace rifle, which is going to do not the best damage, but again, it's still benefiting from double Solar Surge, and I'm going to be able to do some damage. So again, I was like, I don't want this full damage phase to be a failure, so at least let me get something out of it. And I think that is also like, again, we're not really like numbering like tips or whatever, but I guess that's like a second or third tip. I lost track, but just like sometimes when you're doing solo content, you just have to like do what you can and get out of there. That like I could have just fully given up and just fully played passively, just gone to the back of the room or whatever, and then take a deep breath and gather myself and try again, which is a very viable strategy. But also I was like, I'm right there. If I don't pop my well, I'm gonna die either way. So let me see what kind of damage I can do, given the fact that I already have an okay setup. It's not fully built out, but I do have an okay setup. And again, you see that I was able to get down to like, what is that, half health. So after a bit of running around, you see that we're now almost ready to be able to go back into the next boss phase. So again, I'm checking my parameters. You see that I'm using my trace rifle a little bit more now. I had hella trace rifle ammo, and like again, when you panic, you don't always think about all the tools you have to your disposal. And this was one of the things where I really was like, okay, actually, why am I not using my trace rifle when it does decent damage? And also just the fact that like it has the range, right? So like these wizards that hit pretty hard, not pretty hard, they hit hard. I'm also able to be in a space where like I have good enough distance from them with the trace rifle to take off their shields, do damage, get them out of my hair. Now I am skipping a little bit forward because I did just do a whole bunch of running around to get my abilities back, but you see that now we're back on the plate. We've popped our well, we're ready to do another damage phase, but this time the issue is that the boss is just moving around. So we really don't have a clear shot, and I'm going between my linear as well as my trace rifle to figure out which one's going to be able to take off the shield. And so we're struggling a little bit. We're doing that, but again, as you all know, as I explained in the actual walkthrough, once the shield is off, you then have the ability to move from the plate and get to whatever position is best for you to do damage. So again, trying the linear strat, you see that like we're here, we're trying to like figure that out, but also we took so long getting the shield off. We weren't in a good position. We didn't clear out as before. It's less so that we're panicking at this moment, but more so that we're just in a spot where we're just not thinking clearly. And so like, that's like also something to be very clear on. It's like when you're doing these things, like figure out like how you're going to do damage setup before you even get in these spots. Don't be like me, and just be in the spot where you can like actually like learn from your environment, adapt to it, and get better. And so you see right there, I made that quick change back. I was like, you know what, as much as we had that one lucky damage phase, linear isn't it. Let me go back to Gallahorn. So I switched my loadout back to Gallahorn, and that's where I think, at least again, I'm trying to move from theory crafting to build crafting. That's what I'm thinking right now with the current build setup. There's not really a place for me to like sit for like 3 or 4 minutes and like rehash out my build. So I'm doing all of this on the fly, and I really have to make this like split time decision, knowing that like one, when I switch to a different weapon, I'm losing the majority of my ammo, but then also figuring out how best to like get out of here, because again, as we're thinking about like IRL, like I actually have like real work adult life things to do, and so I just need to get out of there. This brings us to our next round of damage. Now again, ran around for a bit, so we're skipping that part, but we get to damage plate, pop my well, hit off a couple galley shots. You see that shield comes down easily, easy peasy. I can't see because I'm blinded by the wizards, but I know which direction the boss is in. And so I start hitting my trace rifle shots. I go back to galley. Again, the focus here is like damage, whatever I can do. And so really thinking about like the tools at your disposal is like when you have a situation like this where you're not necessarily full ammo, you're not necessarily doing everything in the optimal way, like figuring out to like, again, this idea, do what you can with the time and opportunity that you have available. And if you look right there, I can't say definitively, but like I think if we just kind of look at that sliver of health damage that we did right there with Gallahorn, with actually using my trace rifle this time, unlike the first damage phase, I think this was actually the most amount of damage in terms of like one sitting that we did. So for this to be damage phase number 4 or 5, that being such a big chunk of health, if I had done that amount of health and I'd stuck to that strategy the first time of actually using all my tools that I had available, this would probably be a 3 phase instead of what ends up being, I believe, like a 5 or 6 phase. Now, one thing to note is that we don't have control over the terrain, so we don't know which symbol is going to pop up at what time. So all of that has to be on the fly in terms of where you're going to pop a well or a rift or whatever is going to be in the best interest of how you're going to be able to do damage. And so I place my well in a position where I'm half kind of half, not really, blocked by the pole, so I'm not getting hit by every single enemy, but then also I still have access to the boss. Now granted, the boss moves and then we're trying to figure out damage, but you see, like with those 2 galley shots or 3 galley shots, 2 or 3 galley shots, and then my trace rifle, I'm doing a good chunk of damage. Not as much damage as I did the previous round, but still a good amount of damage, because what I do, I'm not even playing my life, but I'm also playing my position better. So figuring out the fact that, like, even though I can't control where the symbols are going to appear, and the symbols, you know, obviously tell you what plate you need to go for damage, I'm still in a really good position in that regard, because I have my well, I'm playing my life, I still am taking note of the knights who are trying to kill me, but also like doing damage as the focus to the boss, and really just putting myself in a position to actually win. And then when I need to get out of there, I see my timer running out for my well, I get out of there. Which leads us to our last damage. Was this damage phase 5 or 6? A lot of damage phases. Luckily, we're able to do damage at the top symbol again. Again, just RNG was in our favor. We took down the shield a little bit faster this time. We did learn that the trace rifle did that really well, as long as we were hitting crit shots. We took down the shield really fast, hit a couple galley shots off, and then you see right there, we're just kind of, I wouldn't say like melting, because it's not the super optimal build, but again, with our trace rifle, with our galley shots, with our grenades, we're doing a good amount of damage, and then we finish it off with some crit shots. So all in all, you know, life gave us lemons and we made a little bit of lemonade, but I do think this is actually a pretty good example of what I think most people can like think of or like process or look at as a learning example of when you're in a situation where either, even if you're like intentionally, you know, you've got a solid build up and you've intentionally ready to go solo flawless prophecy or whatever dungeon, right? Like, or if even if it's not in a dungeon, if you're trying to solo flawless, you know, intentionally you're trying to solo flawless salvage, or if you're just trying to solo activity, I think this can be a really good example of like, one, you have to like trust your gut. You have to get in a space where like you are feeling comfortable, and that just takes time and practice. Two, you know, even though I panicked, don't panic. Like honestly, understanding that at the end of the day, you being able to clear the encounter, whether it's solo or solo flawless, really depends on you being able to have a clear mind about what your strategy is going into the encounter. Like even for something as recent as my attempt at solo flawless, which I did complete thankfully, for Ghost of the Deep, it took a long time. I was making attempts over like 2 weeks straight, but I eventually got the solo flawless clear, but eventually got to get to a space where like I was thinking about my strategy of like, oh, I'm seeing these people 3-phase, and since I'm not 3-phasing, I can't complete it, versus I would have saved myself probably a lot of heartache if I just would have accepted the fact that, hey, what's more feasible of someone at my skill level is a 5 or 6-phase, and which I did. I ended up on my solo flawless clear. I cleared the second boss, Ekthar, in 5 phases, and it really should have been 4, but you know, I messed up 1 phase, and then we cleared the boss in 5, if not 6 phases, right? So just being in a space where like knowing your strat for you, not the strat that like has a million views on YouTube right now. And last but not least, be willing to adapt. You saw that I started off with my build having Gallahorn as my main damage dealer, and I really wasn't confident going into it, and so I was willing to adapt and try something else. Where you saw I tried the linear for a little bit, and even though the linear wasn't the best pick and it wasn't the best for this style of fight, the enemy density, the type of damage that you need to do, even though it wasn't the best for this format, at least in the way that I was currently set up, I can't see a reality where linears are really good solo. But again, you have to keep in mind, I was coming into this thinking I was going to be match made with a group, not that Bungie's servers would be messing up again, right? So, you know, coming into this prepared solo, linear is not necessarily a bad idea, but also you have to have the right build for it. But again, I was willing to adapt. I was willing to try something else. And even though it didn't work out, I don't regret trying out the linear, because now I know if I did want to go back and try this again solo intentionally with a better build, or when I'm in a group of people, I now know and have a better sense of what type of damage I can do with this type of setup with a linear weapon. So again, I never really regret trying out different strategies and trying to adapt, because at the end of the day, I'm learning something, and that's what all this channel is about: game, learn, and grow. mostly like growing as human beings, but also, growing our skills within the game itself. So I hope this was helpful to someone, even if this only gets one view, which wouldn't surprise me because most of my solo content actually gets very low views for the channel. But hopefully this helps someone in terms of like, if you're just even considering doing solo content, do it. Like, absolutely do it. Try it out. You get to learn so much about yourself. You're just like, oh, I'm a patient person, and then you go and try and like solo a dungeon. It's like, actually you're not as patient as you think, right? Or just whatever. There's a number of life lessons that you can learn, and I think that's what's so important and so fun to me about gaming. Is like, it's not just gaming and going into the game and shooting up a big enemy and making explosions. It's also about like the life lessons that you can get from these things. And so I love doing solo content. I love doing guides, walkthroughs, the commentaries, the reactions. I love doing everything that we do on the channel because I get to learn alongside y'all. Y'all get to see me fail and mess up and have to do corrections and all these different things. But I do it because I enjoy the process of being able to learn with you all, grow with you all. And I don't know, hopefully this helps somebody, and it's going on into the archives of the internet. So, who knows what's going to happen right here. But I really appreciate anyone who's taking the time to view this, and we'll get back to our regular scheduled programming. But I do want to just offer this as a quick video point, just given where we're at in the community right now, and also what I think could potentially be helpful for folks, not just now, but as time goes on with the game and there's other opportunities to solo content. As usual, looking forward to seeing y'all star side, and appreciate everyone's time. Peace.